Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with someone I follow on Twitter, and someone who I think you need to hear from, Mr. Alan Corey. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Michael. I follow you as well. So you've got some great content that I enjoy.
I'm still trying to figure out Twitter. I've only been around Twitter for the last 4 or 5 months. I've really focused on YouTube and Instagram. But Alan, what you put out there is amazing, and you've written a couple of books. The most recent one called House Fire: Financial Independence, Retire Early. Uh, as someone myself who has written a book, I got to ask, what kind of craziness gets you to write a book? That's hard to do.
Well, it actually brings me back to how I fell into real estate. I actually moved to New York City right after college to be a comedy writer. I wanted to write jokes and just, I enjoy writing. And the way to become a comedy writer is you got to get up on stage and tell jokes, and then someone hires you. And that does not pay the bills very well, believe it or not. So I looked for another source of income. It ended up being real estate, and I said, you know what, this pays me better, and I'm better at real estate. And I went all in, and but I still have that writing bug.
Very, very cool. So tell us about House Fire. What is it? What does it cover? Why is it important to
Sure.
read for folks?
Yeah. So the fire movement is sort of a popular movement where it's all based on math. And to me, it was stock math, which is not as advantageous as real estate math. So one example is, and what my house fire method is I would take one bill and compare it to the traditional fire method and how I could replace it with real estate. So the traditional would say you need 25 times annual expenses of that bill saved up in a stock portfolio. And as long as you withdraw 4% a year, you'll have enough to cover that bill. So say you have a $150 internet phone bill, something along those lines. The traditional fire stock method is 12-month expenses of that bill would be roughly $1,800. Multiply that by 25, which is $45,000. And then as long as you have a $45,000 stock portfolio, you withdraw 4% a year, that would be $150 a month to cover that bill. And then they're like, great, now you can retire. And I didn't like that. Well, one, because I'm not a stock guy, but it seems like I don't want to save $50,000 for this bill that I'll never escape for the rest of my life, or $45,000. So the cheaper way, and what I created, was the house fire method. I took half of that, $22,500. With that, I can buy $100,000 house, $20,000 down payment, maybe $2,500 closing costs or fix ups, however you cut it. And then that will cash flow me $150. And so I just cut the traditional fire method in half, and I just paired a house with every single bill. So now I have like the car loan bill, right? The gas utility bill, the vacation, house. Each house has this bill, and I burn it up that way. That's the house fire method. Burn the bills, buying each house, and it's half the time more lucrative. Because here's the other thing: your stock balance is staying the same, but with real estate and retiring with my method, you get to spend more and more money in retirement. I'm not constrained because rent, you can raise the rent each month. The mortgage gets paid down each month. Eventually, if a bill gets paid off, like once your car bill's paid off, now all of a sudden I've got an extra 150, 300, $400 to reallocate somewhere else. And so each year in retirement, I get to live larger and larger, which is the exact opposite of every other retirement plan where you kind of have to buckle up and live tighter and more constrained budget each year in your life.
Yeah. It's really fun to have this conversation because one of the things I did when I retired financially independent at 45 was I tried to reach out to the fire movement and kind of saying, hey, you know, I got here by kind of happenstance. It wasn't kind of a plan, but real estate was my thing. And pretty much as soon as they heard that I was anti-stocks, it was like, don't talk to that guy. I don't know what it is about the fire movement that they're so myopic that they don't want to think about another way. I think it is really detrimental because it is really slow, right? What I've taken from, again, my interactions, which I just refuse to engage with now, they want to live in a misery lifestyle. They want to, they want to sacrifice and, eat sardines or whatever for some amount of time and then be financially independent at some age, as opposed to having a lifestyle where you just buy one rental at a time or one house at a time. And oh, by the way, that's fixed rate debt that cash flows day one that goes up with inflation, right? You can use inflation to get rich. If you're doing it the traditional stock way, how's that feel today? right? I
Right.
mean, it's it's a very short-sighted, I don't know, environment on the fire side. I don't understand.
Well, so I think it's and to be completely transparent, I was that person in my first book, A Million Bucks by 30. Like that I wrote a book about how to become a millionaire at 28, and it was living way below your means. This was I was eating ramen noodles every single day, and I've like awakened and I've turned the corner, and that's why I had to almost create a correction of a book and go all in on real estate. But it all comes back from fear of debt. And to be fair, the major talking heads that we all the big names that we see on TV, they're always about no debt, not having a mortgage. And so it's hard to overcome years and years of someone with a bigger microphone talking to an audience saying anti-debt. And I try to preach that actually the more mortgages I have, the less risky it is. Because if I have a paid off rental, $100,000 paid off rental, and this, probably your audience knows this, and there's vacancy, I'm losing money, right? I still have to pay property taxes and insurance. Now, if I have 5 properties, maybe it's $100,000 house. I take that instead of $100,000 all in, 20,000, 20,000, 20,000, 20,000, 5 down payments. If I have 1 vacancy, the other 4 is going to carry me. I've created a mutual fund of real estate, which is the FIRE method, is mutual funds, like spread your risk out. And I'm like, guy, the only way that you can spread your risk out is to have more and more properties and get mortgages, And so I don't know. I think it's just going to be a learning curve. Or I think you once you hit a certain amount of net worth, like I think that's a good sort of maybe mindset to have, is that let's pay off all the debts. Let's not have a mortgage, maybe until you got 100, 200, maybe $300,000 in net worth. But if you get there without any debt, I know that you have the control of your money. You've got the patience, you know how to work hard, you've got all the skill sets that's going to protect you to now leverage what you've already built and just magnify your wealth from there.
Yeah, as you're kind of saying this, you're right. There is definitely a large megaphone around all debt is bad. We need to come up with another 4-letter word for, the debt that somebody else pays. I'll just ask the audience, right? What if, crazy idea, you had a credit card that you could use to a certain amount each month that somebody else paid for? Would you consider that debt? I don't know. I'm sure what
Right.
you would call that.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Another sort of way I spin it is saying, hey, let's say you want to go buy a Tesla, right? You've saved up $50,000. Sure. And you can say, okay, here's my hard-earned $50,000. Let me just hand it over to the richest man in the world. Like, sure, in exchange, you get a Tesla. Congratulations. That's how most people go the car buying route. And I say, well, no, this is what you do. You take the $50,000, go buy a house with that $50,000 that will cover your car note for 7 years on that Tesla. The cash flow will, right? So you fast forward 7 years, you still have your $50,000. You still have a Tesla that's paid off. And now that house, probably you've got equity of $60,000 or $70,000, and it's going to be cash flowing 300 and 400 bucks. So if you take your approach, and the richest man in the world still gets his money. Like it's all wins, but this keeps more money in your name. And if you kind of just tackle it, like what asset can pay for that bill, and just do that over and over and over again. Like now I'm buying houses that say, hey, this is my Hawaii in 3 months house. Like I'm going to spend 3 months in Hawaii. Okay, what's the budget? Let me buy a house that will pay for that. Right? It's fun now. Each house is like a gift
purpose
to myself. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Given a house a purpose. I love that. The other thing that I think is really interesting, because now, we've both been financially free for a while, and we interact with a diverse set of community. I got to tell you that if you really want to know the cheat code to wealth, it's house hacking a fourplex. I mean, you may not like that idea. You may not like living next to your tenants, or, you might want to house hack a 5 or 6 bedroom. But if you really want to shortcut this thing, it's not about saving $300,000. I mean, that's tough to do, right? Let's say you make 80 grand a year, or you live cheaply, you put away 15 maybe. Whew. However, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got what I think is a slightly better version of the quadruplex house hack. I call it short shifting. Okay. So short shifting is similar. you can take the same quadruplex, but you put all 4 units on short-term rental, Airbnb, VRBO, and then you kind of have a go bag. Like all 4 are furnished, and whatever one's vacant, that's the unit you sleep in. So it might be a 1 bedroom one time, a 3. You're shifting between your short-term rentals,
Sure.
and that's like a house hack on steroids. If you, and that obviously it takes some flexibility, it can't really do that if you have kids and pets. But if you're a young single person looking to buy your first place, house hack all day. You can get a 3.5% FHA mortgage to purchase that thing. But if you step it up and do the short shifting method on top of it, that's great. And I also know some people who put an RV in their driveway. So if all 4 are booked, they sleep in the RV, and then also they put the RV up on Outdoorsy to rent out. So it's just asset after asset. And so if you can short shift between all these things, man, you're going to change your life. And that's how I became a millionaire by 28. Was I house hacked a duplex, but each duplex was 3 bedrooms, and I rented it out by the room, and I was making a $2,000 profit. And
let's tell that story, because again, that's very much what Spencer Cornelia, big YouTuber. That's what Todd Baldwin, CNBC millennial millionaire contributor, both been on the channel a couple of times. They house hack, but also with roommates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Spencer just bought a 5-bedroom, added a wall. Now is a 6-bedroom in Vegas. And I mean, he's printing money. I mean, again, folks, if you really want to be, this is what I tell people all the time when I try to talk to 18, 19, 20-year-olds. If you can house hack and have roommates for 4 or 5 years of your life, you could be financially free by 30. 15 years before I was. Figure it out. That's what I tell them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the age where it's acceptable and fun, and you want to have roommates, right? Like my case, it was all comedians. That's all I knew when I moved to New York to be a comedy writer. And so we called it the House of Clowns. It was a
perfect,
a 6-bedroom that each one was a comedian. Some of them are names that may be familiar with people now, but we all lived together under a house, and we were all working the clubs and making ends meet. But everyone needs a place to stay, right? And if you provide a good place, I was charging $600 a room, and to me that was under market, but it was also fun. I get to live with my friends, but it made me fall in love with real estate, obviously.
Very, very cool. So you also have a podcast that you produce. Is that a daily, weekly, monthly thing? What is that? Tell us about it.
It's weekly. It's called Real Estate Maximalist. I've done everything real estate related. I new construction, flips, property management. I've now created a portfolio of over 300 doors, $50 million of assets, and I try to do every single method and teach it. And so Real Estate Maximalist is really lifestyle design through real estate. So it's learning to, maybe you don't want to be a mogul, and that's fine. Maybe you want to travel Europe for 2 years. And it's just people telling their stories of how real estate transformed their lives. And it's amazing the people I have on there who did it with $20,000, right? That they bought like 3 properties that were $80,000 each, and now they're traveling the world with their spouse. And it's none of them knew it, and they all learned it on the fly. And it all comes down to just taking action, putting your money into something, believing in yourself. You'll figure it out. You and I both know that landlords are the dumbest people in the world. The bar is so low. The bar is so low to be a good landlord.
Yeah, there's no test. There's no test.
Yeah. And like everyone who rents, think of your landlord right now. You don't look at that person and say, man, that person is the smartest person I know. You're like, that guy's an idiot, or he's such a slob, or she, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, they figured it out. You can figure it out.
Absolutely. So I'd be interested to hear about your journey from, that first duplex. What year was that? Do you remember?
Well, so my very first purchase was a $99,000 apartment in Brooklyn, New York, when no one wanted to live in Brooklyn. And that was a 1-bedroom. And I turned the living room into a bedroom. So it had no living room at that point, but then I could house hack that. So this was before the term house hack even existed. I'm 44. So this was 22 years ago. And then I had a goal. I was just going to buy a property every year for 5 straight years. And I was like, I can leave my day job, because I had a day job working tech support. Terrible at tech. I was like the world's funniest tech support operator, which doesn't pay well either. Yeah. And so then my second purchase was a $450,000 duplex, also in Brooklyn. Again, before it was Myrtle Avenue, which at the time people referred to it as Murder Avenue. And everyone would come up to me, like the locals, and be like, see that I moved in, and they're like, "Hey, are you a cop? You must be a cop." I'm like, "I don't know. Do you want me to be a cop? Do you not want me to be a
What's
cop?"
the
Like,
right answer? Yes or no?
I'll be whoever you want me to be. But yeah. And
That's funny.
so anyway, that $450,000 duplex I bought with 10% down. That was with an FHA loan, and so $45,000, which I was able to save up because I was house hawking the apartment, and I did all this on a $50,000 salary in New York City. So I was eating ramen.
This is important. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's slow. It takes sacrifice for everyone. It's just we have the experience of being in it for decades and know how it ends. Just get started, do the work. It's a lot to see. So where do the big jumps occur? Right, going from a 99,000 to a duplex to now 300 units. There had to be some massive jump somewhere in there.
So it was my third purchase. So at that point, so one a year, right? So $99,000 condo, $50,000 duplex. And the third one, at that point, I'd run out of money, and I was 24, right? So I found it was a neighborhood that was about to burst called Red Hook in Brooklyn. And I found the property for sale by owner, and it was like $400,000. I had no money, but I found a contractor who was just as passionate and excited about real estate as me. And he basically said he'd partner with me and do the work for free. And then we would, whatever's left over, we would share. And that was great. We found the person who could fix it up. I found the deal, still needed the money. So then there's only one person. Like, I had no network. I don't know anyone who's rich. I didn't, my parents were school teachers in Atlanta, Georgia. Like I had no connections. Yeah. So the only person I knew that had a job that was like maybe six figures was the girl I was dating at the time, her father. So I went to her father and I said, here's the deal. Here's the spreadsheet. Here's the guy who's going to do all the work for free. This is what I think we can buy it for and renovate it for and sell it for. And he's like, okay, I'll pay for it. So, I think he put in $200K on the deal all in. We hit a home run. And not only did we hit a home run, we turned this property and sold it. We put about 200 into it. So bought it for 400, 200, sold it for 1.1 million. And not only that, it was the first property ever sold in Red Hook, Brooklyn for over $1 million. And the buyer was Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank. She bought it for her own personal investment, and it was on the front page of the New York Times real estate section. And we all three partners made $166,000 each, which was like, I thought it was
you figured it out.
Biggest check. Yeah, I figured it out. But what it really did, though, is it gave me confidence that, wow, if Barbara Corcoran's buying stuff from me, like, I'm a step ahead of Barbara Corcoran, right? Like, it's like my gut, my instincts, whatever. I can do this, especially in New York, which I was scared of all the New York real estate titans, right? Barbara being one of them. Like, I can't succeed here because there's so many smart people. But wow, I figured it out. She bought it, and then from there, the floodgates opened, and I just went all in and became a real estate maximalist on real estate, and just everything I could do, every shiny thing. Let me try to make money off this. Let me learn about this, and haven't stopped in over 20 years.
Very, very cool. So that was a flip, obviously.
That was a flip. Yeah.
So what year did you buy it, and what was the timeline?
It was a year. So that would have been 2004. I think it probably took a year and a half. We sold it 2006 to Barbara. Okay. And then we did another flip after that. And then that was at that point 4. And then the real estate market crash happened. But my other properties, my duplex and I had sold the apartment by then, but my duplex was still cash flowing, right? That it didn't really affect me at all because I had fixed debt. I had, and people still needed a place to rent. And really what it did, it allowed me to succeed because properties just got cheaper and cheaper. And then I built up the confidence in myself. People wanted to invest with me. I knew sort of where the hot markets were coming before the people with big pockets, because I had nothing but time, and so and I enjoyed.
So is this portfolio all in New York, the one that you've built?
No. So I came back. Most of it's in the Southeast now. Over time I sold all those properties. Another celebrity story. So what happened in Brooklyn is the New Jersey Nets moved to Brooklyn. And because I had leveraged a bunch of properties and I bought a couple other duplex, I used a home equity loan because, again, I had no money. So home equity loan, basically buying another duplex that was cash flowing, 100% financed at that point because my down payment was a HELOC, financed it. And Brooklyn changed. I got lucky. And this is another reason why I teach leverage is key. Because if I didn't operate with going into debt, I would have had one property, but I was able to do 2-3 properties in Brooklyn. And I call these imaginary lottery tickets because I bought them on the cash flow, just trickling in. But if the more properties you have, the more likelihood you have a crazy event that has nothing to do with you that would create rapid appreciation. So in my case, the Brooklyn Nets, moved and opened up a stadium right down the street, and all the on Murder Avenue, the 99-cent stores turned into Starbucks, the laundromats turned into Chipotle's, and then celebrities came in. One that bought my property was Christina Ricci, who's an actress known as Wednesday, and she does a lot of like goth emo roles. But if celebrities start moving into your neighborhood, right? And so I flipped a property, made $1 million profit, that I bought for cash flow and held for 4 years. I bought it for 1 million, 100% finance, sold it for 2 million to her. And so I got
suck.
lucky. Yeah. That doesn't suck. And so I have 3 times that's happened to me where I've leveraged something and I've just bought more and more, and it's doubled, or I made $1 million profit on 3 different transactions. And none of them were I had any genius or foresight. It was, I'd like the cash flow on this. I'm just going to hold it for 30 years. And then, I don't
Something
expect.
happened.
Yeah, something happened, and I'm okay, sure. I'm glad I'm in this game.
Very, very cool. So what's the biggest property you own?
Right now, so last 2 years I partnered with 2 of my friends, and so we sort of started buying apartment complexes. So collectively, we own a 162 unit in Huntsville, Alabama, and we bought that about a year ago. But so personally now, sort of my goal since then is if I ever sell something, I'm buying something bigger. So if I sell a duplex, I buy a triplex or more. If I sell a triplex, quad. And so now I've got all triplexes and quads, and every time I sell one, I got to go into an apartment building. So I'm flipping them into that. So it's fun for me, and it's challenging. I'm learning new things every single day. And, so I know it's scary. And, but I started with $99,000 condos and just sort of,
awesome.
Flipped them up. Yeah.
So I'm guessing you're actually 1031 exchanging versus actually selling and moving. Is that fair?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, rolling it into the next thing, majority of the time. Right.
Yeah. So the biggest thing my wife and I own is 20 units. We own several at kind of that mark. What's the big difference when you own something over 100 units? Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, once you get to 100 units, you've got on-site staff. So you've got on-site maintenance, you've got on-site leasing agent. And it's, people say this, but you don't really get it until you're in it, but it gets easier and easier, honestly, the bigger and bigger the deal, because you get more and more removed, and there's more and more people that are going to take care of the things that you used to take care of. But I also feel like I learned, doing the onesies, twosies.
Oh yeah.
I learned what's important and the skill set and the questions to ask and the expectations of tenants. So I wouldn't say skip all that and just go straight to apartments, because there is value in hands-on doing it yourself.
Very cool. It sounds like you've also have you done new construction or new development?
Yeah. So I'm also a realtor. I've got a realtor team in Atlanta, the Alan Corey team. And what I was doing, and what was happening the last, 8 years or so, when I was taking clients out, a lot of doctors, there's a lot of hospitals and universities in Atlanta. So there's a huge international community. And a lot of my clients were wanting multi-generational homes, because their family would live with older grandparents, or their family would visit for 6 months out of the year, things like that. And that product just didn't exist in Atlanta. Like we didn't have the mother-in-law suites or the basement with its own entrance and stuff. And these were people who wanted to buy $1.5 million homes, and I couldn't satisfy them. So I was like, guys, I keep hearing that you want to do this. I'm going to build it. So then I started buying teardowns in the neighborhoods that they liked and designing spec homes, and every single one sold as soon as the architect made the plans. And so I built 7 to 10 homes over like a 3-year period, and they all sold before they even hit the market.
Nice.
And you know, so I learned a lot there. But it got to the point where like I don't know, my money is tied up in a property for a year or so. It is just this windfall. And I'd see all these sort of, you know, rentals that I would want to buy. And I'm like, oh, when I sell that, then I can't. Yeah. And then also you don't get the 1031 on new construction, but I'm not complaining. It was very successful for me, but that's not what I wanted to do long-term, just chasing those windfalls. I wanted more of the steady stream of income.
Very cool. So I'd be remiss, somebody does, you know, you've got as long as experience as I do in the market, 20 plus years. There's a lot of talk about a housing crash, a lot of talk about, you know, this, that, the other thing. What do you see going on out there? And then most importantly, well, let's start with a crash and then I'll do point two. What do you think? Housing crash?
No, not housing growth. I mean, when my first $99,000 apartment, I bought with a 7.5% interest rate. So to me, that was that anything below that has been gravy. Like I was successful at 7.5, right? Correction is the word I would use, not crash. And and it needed a much needed correction. Like I'm not saying that. I think it'll be healthy for the real estate market. For once, you know, buyers are coming back in and having, you know, some strength in the negotiations, which is healthy. It's great for investors. I think it's a great time to buy because if you're buying on the same principles, a 30-year fixed, and it's still cash flowing, right? These are the options that you can get. It can either interest rates go up and you've locked in a 30-year 7.5, and you're like, that's fine. I bought it because it's cash flowing at 7.5. Interest rates are 10% in the future. I'm genius. I locked in at 7.5. I got in at the right time, right? That's option number one. And sure, if the interest rates go up to 10, the house price may go down, but I'm not trying to sell. I'm just going to hold it and rent it. Like I'm not timing a market, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'll you know, option B or 2, I should say, is okay, interest rates stay the same. Glad I didn't wait. I wasn't waiting on the sidelines. It's 7.5 in 2 years, 4 years. At least I got some cash flow in the meantime. Third, interest rates go down and you're like, oh, I feel like a fool. I bought it 7.5 and it's cash flowing, but interest rates are now 4.5. Well, then that's when you do your cash out refi. Like if interest rates go down, that means the price is going to go up. You're going to have more equity, and then you just refi and your cash flow is going to get better. So for investors, at least in small multifamily, I don't get why you would wait. Like there's no downside. And if the market goes down, rents don't go down. Like a recession means people lose their jobs and such. But what that means is not as many people can buy a house. So there's actually more renters. And so it's an evergreen business. Like I don't know any landlord that say, man, my property, went down 30%. I guess I got to lower the rent 30%. Like that never happens. Right.
Yeah.
So
works, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, I've told people on my channel that I expect next year to be a rough macro year for the U.S. economy and frankly, the world economy. I think it's, unemployment's going to go up. GDP is going to go down. It's going to be a rough year, but micro, when I think about my wife and I, what we're going to do, we're going to go crazy. It's going to be amazing what's coming, right? Because again, we buy with a strict model, must cash flow day one with existing debt, right? Whether it's, non-QM at 9.5, seller financing at this. We're going to be buying a lot more because everybody's so scared. And I've been here twice before. This is my third go around with everybody being afraid. So I'm like, dude, I just closed a property out of the MLS for the first time in 3 years, Alan. It's crazy. These deals are showing up in the MLS again.
Yeah. I mean, I know things are changing because realtors are calling me back the same day.
Exactly.
So that hasn't happened in 5 years. Days.
Shame on you, agents.
Yeah. Days of market used to be like 5 days average, and now it's like 21 days. And what I've been doing is, anything that's on the market over 21 days, instant 10%, 15% offer off. And if they ignore it, then that's fine. And I've been following this one, and then they drop the price to what my offer is, and it sits for another 3 weeks, and I submit another one 10% lower than that. And then they're like, we're not ready for it. And then they drop it. And it's like, okay, well, I'll race you to the bottom. I can wait you out. Like I don't have to buy. You have to sell.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, I think there's opportunities right now, which is to me that's the fun part, is the acquisition, the deal hunting, and I think that's where the dopamine hits the hardest for me.
Yeah. So this would be an interesting question. So when you look at your year, right, and you've done this for 20 years, if you break it down into single years, my 12 out of my 20 years, and I've done this. This is why I know the number 12 out of 20. My best deal of the year came between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Oh
If
yeah.
you think about your buying time, is it similar?
Yeah, yeah. I think yes, yes, 100%. Usually it's December. Put in that offer right around Thanksgiving when no one is making offers. You close on it right around Christmas, because a lot of investors that they want to exit something before year end for tax purposes
Yep.
and things like that. So yeah, that's when I scoop it up. And it's yeah, I'm with you on that. And it's everyone has holidays on their mind, or travel, or like just
Yeah. If your
family.
house is still listed on
Yeah,
December 15th, you're motivated.
right, right. As a realtor and coaching a team of realtors, like we tell the people that like you need to get this listed in October.
Yes.
And if it's not under contract by Thanksgiving, we have to do a deep haircut, kind of thing.
Yeah, that or
Or
take
just
it
yeah.
off and we'll rejuvenate it in February
Yep.
or something.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really excited for what's coming because again, I think I actually think there's something coming that I haven't seen in a while, and that is more seller financing, right? Because I can give a seller his price, his or her price, if they give me my terms,
Right. Right. Yeah.
right? I remember buying a house that I thought was worth 100 grand, best case, but this son of a gun seller had to sell it for 120. And we went around and around and around. And I finally broke down and I said, okay, the only way I can give you 120 is if you give me a 30-year note at 1% interest. And,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he said, yes.
Oh
I know
wow.
exactly after, because I dealt with this guy for like 6 months. I
Yeah.
guarantee you he is running around the golf course with his 5 buddies or 3 buddies or whatever it is, bragging about taking this sucker for 120 grand on this little shitty house. And he always forgets to say that he got a 1% mortgage
Oh my gosh.
for 30 years.
That that's the
Yeah.
pre-home. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
but
I
I
mean,
think
along
that
those
stuff's
lines.
coming. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, what I'm seeing now is people who have assumable mortgages
Yes.
that, and they get to
FHA,
charge
VA.
extra. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I've locked in a 2.5, 3.5 interest rate, and it's like, well, you could sell that for 300, but your mortgage actually is assumable, so we can maybe get 400 out of it because the new buyer can just take over, and assume your mortgage. So that to me is like the perk. Like over coronavirus, everyone wanted the swimming pool for like short term rentals or whatever, or their own primary, and now it's assumable. It like just jacks up the premium price.
So is it true assumable loans? Because I honestly haven't done one. This is something I hope to do in the next year or so. It's basically, is it most or all FHA and VA loans? All VA loans are assumable. Is that true?
I believe I need to fact check that. It's my
Sure.
understanding that VA are. I don't know about the FHA. I think some are and some aren't.
Okay.
But typically, a lot of commercial loans do
Okay.
have
That's true.
assumable. So I'm seeing it more. At least I'm seeing it in commercial property marketing. Commercial being
Okay.
like apartments, 5 units
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
more. So that I haven't seen that show up on my radar for a while.
Yeah.
Because typically the current owners' loans were higher than what you could get now.
Yeah.
But now that it's flip flopped, it's a marketing piece.
And then let's talk. We both went through the crash. We actually got rid of all our houses at the peak and 1031 into apartments, so we escaped it beautifully. And then we bought all the way down. I remember I actually went back and looked at closing statements. Right, so my market of Fresno, California, collapsed 75%,
Wow.
peak to trough, peak to trough.
Yeah.
But it took like 4 years, like just over like 50 months, peak to trough. I started buying housings again at 150, and I bought all the way down to like, I think my cheapest house was 28 grand. Right. The key to all of that is I didn't know where the bottom was. I just bought a deal that cash flowed the day I closed, and I made sure every deal was better than the one before because I didn't know
Nice.
where the bottom was.
Right. Right.
If you're in a position where you can do more than one deal in the next 2 years, I think you have to have that attitude. You have to make sure your second deal is better than your first. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, people love to say the interest rates are rising and I'm going to wait it out. And I keep coming back to, I don't care at all what the interest rates are. If I'm buying, like, because I just take the current interest rate, I plug it in a spreadsheet, and
It's
it's
one
okay.
variable out of a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
variables. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Like, is it cash flowing? Okay, I'm going to buy it because it's going to be fixed. And like I said before, I can refinance if it gets better, but it's better than waiting. Because I promise you, I have so many clients for the last 2 years who have been waiting, right? It's a bidding war. I'm going to wait. It's been frenzy. I'm going to wait. Okay. Hey, I followed up with them. Hey, the bidding wars are over. You want to buy? I'm going to wait because the interest rates are high. I'm like, when are you going to stop waiting? Like you're trying to time a market, and I've been doing this 22 years. I've never tried to time the market, but just the fact that I'm constantly in acquisition mode, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, you got really at the end of the day, because we're investors, right? We're investors first. Really, the cost of I don't care if the cost of capital is 20%. It's one variable in a spreadsheet. I don't buy negative cash flow. I call them alligators. Must cash flow day one. I only get 30-year debt, and I'm good to go. And then I move on to the next one.
Right.
And it's a very comfortable position to be in.
Yeah. And to me, it's low risk, and on my podcast, and you probably talk to people, like, more and more people are getting comfortable buying out of state and long distance and getting property management. It's becoming more of a norm. And I think you do a great job of teaching people that this is not scary. What's scary is not doing anything, like, because
Yeah.
then your situation
Choose your
won't change.
hard, right? There's a
Yeah.
quote that I'm starting to see, right? 9 to 5 is hard. Being poor is hard. Being a landlord is hard. Choose your hard. It's all hard, right?
Yeah, like on Twitter, my account, Real Estate Maxi, like, people will say, "Well, this is great advice, Alan, but it's hard." And I'm like, "Sorry for giving bad advice that's easy. Like what do you want?" Yeah, like, I can either give you good advice that maybe takes some effort, or
Yeah.
no effort, and you're not going to get any, rewards out of it.
Yeah. So do me a favor, Alan. Where can people find you? Get your books. Show your book one more time. Plug
Yeah,
the
sure.
podcast.
Here's House Fire. Here's $1,000,000 by 30. They're
Woohoo.
both on Amazon. But podcast, Real Estate Maximalist, very active on Twitter and Instagram at Real Estate Maxi, Maxi. And you can also search Alan Corey. And I'm mostly commenting on the beautiful words of Michael Zuber on all my social media accounts.
Thank you, Alan. Have a wonderful day. This is a lot of fun. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.